So let's take a closer look at our conditional statements. Our conditional statements are if-then statements. We can rearrange these conditional statements and come up with some other statements that have their own specific names and own specific properties. So our conditional statement was if P, then Q, where P was the hypothesis and Q was the conclusion. In our statement, if an animal is a bird, then it can fly. The animal is a bird is the hypothesis, and it can fly is the conclusion. So the converse statement is when you switch the order of the conclusion and the hypothesis. The conclusion comes first, so if Q, then P, then the hypothesis came last. So switching that order makes it become the converse statement, and it may also be true or false. We don't know till we write out the statement. Just to make things grammatically correct, we can't put it before we know what it is, so we do still have to keep the if an animal part. Just the hypothesis part of is a bird is going to not come next. We're going to take the conclusion. So if an animal can fly, then it is a bird. We just couldn't write if it can fly, then an animal is a bird, because we need the animal part first to say this is what we're talking about before we can use the word it. So this statement is a false statement. If an animal can fly, then it is a bird. Well, insects are classified as animals. I had to look that up because I wasn't sure, but they are classified as an animal, and we have many insects that can fly. So this statement is false. Our counterexample is insects can fly, so this is not true. An inverse statement is when we negate our original conditional statement. So we always want to go back to our original conditional, if P then Q, and when we negate something, we say it's not true. If not P, then not Q. So if our statement is, if an animal is a bird, then it can fly, we're just going to put the word not in there for both of those. We're not switching the order this time. We are only saying not. If an animal is not a bird, then it cannot fly. So if an animal is not a bird, then it cannot fly. This statement is also false for the same counterexample. An insect is considered an animal, and it can fly, so this is false. The contrapositive is when you both switch the order and you negate. So we're going to still use not. If not Q, we use the conclusion, then not P, then we use the hypothesis. So again, we go back to the original. If an animal is a bird, then it cannot fly. We're going to switch the order and negate at the same time. If an animal cannot fly, then it is not a bird. This is also a false statement. Every single one of these statements are false. The conditional statement was false because if an animal is a bird, then it can fly. We have penguins, emus, or ostriches. Those are birds, but they can't fly. So those are counterexamples for this contrapositive as well. If an animal cannot fly, penguins cannot fly, then it is not a bird, while a penguin is considered to be a bird. So every single one of these statements is false. You have to take it statement by statement. That's not always the case. Sometimes they're all true, sometimes some are false, some are true. You have to write out the statement and then think about, is this a true statement or is this a false statement?